Joining me now from Kyiv is Inna Sovsun. She is a member of the Ukrainian parliament. Thank you for taking the time for us tonight. I know it's not easy, and I know you just told me that you've had a really hard day. What's been going on today?
Well, today I had to go to the funeral of a son of a friend of mine. The son's name was Roman Ratosny, and he was killed a couple of days ago on the east. And he was a well-known activist over here in Kyiv, and this was a relatively big funeral. Seeing my friend devastated by the loss of his son, but then also many more people who are suffering because of this loss to the whole community. That was a very difficult experience today.
I'm so sorry for your loss and for your friend's loss. Switching gears, European leaders are continuing to reiterate their support for your country. They met in Kyiv this week. They're supporting the possibility of Ukraine joining the European Union. Do you think you're close?
Well, we are closer than we were a week ago, so that has given us hope, and I think that is important on two levels. First of all, on a symbolic level, it's important for people to have a future, to see where all this is going, and to see that we are welcome in the European family. But then also it means that on our side, now there will be a clear framework of what we need to do to change the country internally, to make us stronger economically, socially, and in many other dimensions. So we are seeing it as a good step, but we understand that lots of work needs to be done before we actually get the full membership in the European Union.
Yeah, and how is it on a humanitarian level on the ground right now? $225 million in humanitarian assistance, again pledged by the Obama administration. That goes for cash for families, for essential items, clean drinking water, medical supplies. What is it like there right now on the ground?
Well, that truly depends, because in Kyiv, in the areas around the city, it's better. But again, if you go a little bit further from the city, I was visiting my parents, for instance, who live in the northwest of the city, and I could see the small villages over there that have been under occupation. For them, it is extremely difficult because their whole houses have been destroyed, their whole lives have been blown up. Like over here, I think this is Irpin, which you are showing. Of course, for those people, they need much more help. But the absolute majority of people are, well, relatively okay in terms of water supplies, food supplies. But further east, that is where the situation is getting really, really bad. That is where people do not have access to water, people do not have access to proper food, nutrition, and all of that. And that is not so much the issue of money, even though that is important, is the issue of supply chains, which are just not functioning there, of the broken water supply systems, and so on and so forth. So it's not so easy to deal with this problem as long as the military activity is there.
And Putin obviously is focused on the east and also on the south and those crucial waterways there. What would the loss of that territory mean for your country?
Well, on the economic side, of course, that is creating lots of difficulties, because right now we do not have access to our ports, or we do have access to some of the ports, but they cannot really function properly because we cannot access the sea. And that means that we cannot export the grains that we produce for the whole world. And that is one of the biggest issues right now. So we have planted 70 to 75% of the harvest compared to last year. So we are still able to produce as much as we can. But the problem will be end of summer, early autumn, is how do we deliver what we have produced to the countries that we have been selling that for? And that will be a huge loss for those countries. And that's why the issue of food security is growing. But it will be a big hit for us, because economically we depend on those supplies of money and those sales. So unless this problem is dealt with, that will be a problem both to Ukraine and the rest of the world, of course.
And we've been reporting on these Americans who were captured by the Russians. What is the reaction among Ukrainians? Are these Americans helping in the cause?
Well, I think we treat all human beings captured by Russians equally. So it doesn't really matter where they come from. We are grateful to anyone who is helping Ukraine, and we understand that being captured by Russians is not a good experience. We do hope that all those hostages will be released, but that is a process, unfortunately, and it will take time before people are actually released.
Mm-hmm. And Putin, again, nothing new here, lashing out at the West for the sanctions that have been imposed. Do you think these sanctions are starting to have an effect on his war effort or support for him within his own country?
Well, not right now, because right now it actually, unified the people of Russia around Putin, because right now they're saying it's them against the world. So in terms of his support among population, it's actually very high. It's in the 80s, 80% of people fully support the war against Ukraine and they support Putin. But we are also seeing some economic effects. There have been recent reports saying that hundreds of thousands of Russian millionaires are planning to leave the country. Then we also know that a large portions of Russian industry now stops functioning because, yes, they were producing many things, but then they also relied on some elements of that production on supplies from the West, particularly with electronics. So they cannot produce much more right now when those stocks are, down. So I think that it will start to hit them more right now. But of course, the biggest issue still is the oil and gas embargo. We know that since February 24th, when they attacked Ukraine, they've actually earned more from selling oil and gas to the Western world compared to what they did a year before. So this is still an issue. So that is where the sanctions definitely need to be tougher in order to have an actual effect on the Russian economy.
And finally, before I let you go, UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson this week warned allies to prepare for what he called the long haul. Realistically, how and when do you think this all comes to an end?
Well, I wish I had an answer to that question. We are trying to be prepared for a long war, even though, of course, we all the time wish for it to end, yesterday. But I think we are psychologically trying to measure our strength and our endurance for a longer fight that can last much longer than we wish for that to last. We're trying to understand how to function in this situation longer term, not just the next couple of weeks. So now, for instance, during the day, we had a committee session in the Committee of Energy where I'm serving, where we were discussing how we shall ensure that we have heating during the winter in case of war. So we're trying to think about what are the scenarios, what we need to be ready for. And that is something that we need to plan further ahead, thinking that this can last for half a year more or a year more probably.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We appreciate your time. I know you're busy. You have a lot going on there. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Thanks.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.